Hello and welcome to today's edition of Ceros Academy. I'm your host, Drew Horine, and today we're going to talk about rollovers. Rollovers are available as of Ceros Release 5.21, and they allow you to create nifty effects that happen whenever you move your mouse over an item on the screen. For example, I've got an Add to Cart button on this page that turns green whenever I move my mouse over it. I've also got some color swatches that display the different options for my product on the page. And you'll notice that within this panel, I've even got more options here that can be displayed by simply moving my mouse over the item on the screen. Alright, let's go back in time and see what this page looked like before we had rollovers available. We can see that there are swatches that tell us that there are different color options available, and there is an Add to Cart button over here, but there's not really a visual cue that we can interact with those on our desktop. Let's go into Studio and see if we can fix that. Let's start with our Add to Cart button. Before we can create a rollover, we need to actually create the layer that shows what it's going to look like when we move our mouse over the item. So what I'm going to do is create an additional layer in our Layers panel. This says Add to Cart Rollover. You always want to be good about naming your layers so that you can find stuff later on. Now I'm going to select the three items that make up our Add to Cart button. We have a shape in the background, we have a text object, and we have a hotspot over top of it. And I'm just going to press Ctrl C to copy that. I'm going to select our Add to Cart rollover layer and Ctrl V to paste it right there. So now I essentially have a duplicate of these layers. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color of this item here. So I'm in my inspector panel, I'm going to click on the color swatch, and I'm just going to select the green swatch over here so I can keep a consistent color theme throughout. And I've kept my hotspot in here for a good reason. We've got an action associated with this hotspot that says on click we're going to open our shopping cart. Well, we want that to remain whenever we hover over the item, and since we're essentially going to be displaying an additional layer on top of that, it's going to cover up our previous hotspot. So we want to make sure that we keep this hotspot on top of it, and we might even give that a new name called Add to Cart Hover Hotspot. That way we can tell when people are clicking on that one versus our other one. Now what I'm going to do is hide this layer, and so you can see we've got our original hotspot there, and I'm going to select that and I'm going to apply another action to it. Now you see already on our interactions panel we have an on click event that opens the shopping cart, but what we also want is a hover event that actually will display that other button. So I'm going to add an interaction. One of the big changes in Ceros 5.21 is you can create multiple interactions per object. And so on this hotspot, I'm going to add an interaction, and I'm going to choose on rollover. And then I'm going to show the Add to Cart rollover layer. Okay. Now you notice I have here a checkbox that says keep object visible. Since my other layer is actually on top of this layer, I don't need to worry about trying to hide that object because it's going to automatically be hidden anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. One of the things that you want to be sure of whenever you're adding interactions is to click that add button or it will not save. Likewise, if you're editing your interactions, you're going to need to click the update button to make sure that that saves. Alright, so now we have added a rollover event on there. And you'll notice I still have an on click event that's opening my shopping cart. This is for your mobile devices. Mobile devices don't support rollovers because they don't use a traditional mouse. People are tapping on them with their fingers. And so you want to make sure that you're going to degrade your experience gracefully if you're planning on mobile users being able to access it. If you're not worrying about mobile users, if this is only for your desktop experience, you don't have to worry about that at all. You can just add your rollover events. But if you want mobile users as well as desktop users, you need to add those additional actions in there. Let me show you where we're at on this now. So here we are, we're on the same page, and suddenly we have a rollover on there. It was just that easy. Now that we've created our Add to Cart button, we want to go ahead and create our color swatches. Essentially what we want to happen is for the chair to change colors whenever we hover over the blue, pink, or green icons. Before we do any of that, we need to go ahead and tell the page what to display when nothing's being hovered. You'll notice in my layers I've got a blue, pink, and green chair layer. I also have blue, pink, and green flyouts. We'll get to those later. The first thing I want to do is hide my blue chair layer because that's only supposed to be displayed whenever I'm hovering over my blue button. And then I've got this outline cutout layer here that indicates that something is supposed to be there, because if we just have an empty hole there, nobody's going to know what to do, and so we want some visual indicator there. Now that's all I'm going to do with the static content layer. So now I'm going to go into my swatches. Now these swatches couldn't be simpler. All they are blue, pink, and green square shapes, and I'm going to add interactions to them. Now I'll move my inspector panel over here so that we can see what's going on right next to the action. The first thing I want to do is I want to add a trigger. My trigger is going to be on rollover because I want this to happen when my mouse rolls over the item. And then I'm going to show the blue chair layer. Then I'll click add to make sure that rollover is saved. Couldn't be simpler. Let's check that out in the preview. So here we are, and I'm rolling over. Very, very easy. Now remember though, these actions don't work on mobile devices because mobile devices don't support rollovers. So if you expect this to be viewed on a tablet or a smartphone, then you're going to want to add some additional actions to account for that. The great thing about the new interactions panel is it supports multiple interactions per object. So in addition to my rollover here, I'm going to go ahead and add an on-click event that says I want to show the blue chair layer, and I'm going to click add, and there you see I've got multiple interactions here on my object. Now if I click that item or if I tap it on my mobile device, then it's going to show the blue chair layer. Now one thing I want to consider though is when I'm showing a layer, what if I've already tapped on the pink or green layer? You've got to make sure on a mobile device that you're removing those layers so that all of your interactions work as you expect them to. So I'm going to go ahead and also add another on-click event that says I want to hide layers, and I'm going to hide the pink chair. And you notice as soon as I click that, I've got the option to add another thing to hide here. And the cool thing that we've done is whenever you're hiding one layer, it removes it from the list. So you notice that the pink chair is no longer in the list. And so I'm also going to hide the green chair. That way, if those have already been selected, then it's going to hide those layers for me on my mobile device and everything will work. And so I'm going to go ahead and click add. And there, I've got these working. And if I click it on my desktop, it's just going to display that again. It's no big deal there. So now I've got my blue rollover set, and I want to show you the area that that rollover affects. So I'm going to open up my blue chair layer, and you'll notice that you've got this light blue polygon around the area. And it starts with the item that you're clicking on, and it goes all the way around the entire layer that you're revealing. And so anything within that layer, as long as your mouse is in there, it's going to stay up. Let me hide this layer and show you how that works. So here I am, I'm hovering over. Now if I come out there, it's going to change back. But if I go up, I can move all around this area and it stays up. But once I move out, it goes away again. This allows us to do some really cool things with our rollovers. Here we are back in the original experience, and if you remember, when we hovered over our blue, pink, and green layers, we had an additional hotspot which revealed additional information about the chair. Let's jump back into the studio and accomplish that. So in my blue chair layer, I've got a couple extra items here. I have a circle shape that's going to be a visual indicator to the user that there's something there that they can interact with. And then I've got a blue flyout hotspot, and that's what's actually going to make my flyout appear. And of course I've got a blue flyout layer that happens up here. It's got a green circle and a line that points to the content that's going to be revealed. All I have to do with that layer is hide it. Selecting my blue flyout hotspot, then all I have to do is apply a rollover event which reveals the blue flyout. Click add, and then be sure and hide your blue chair layer. That way you can nest all of your interactions. Let's see how it works. Here we are. So we've got our blue, and then we have our additional content that appears. Just like everything we do at Ceros, rollovers are designed to help you create beautiful, rich, and engaging content. If you have any questions or suggestions about rollovers or anything else in the world of Ceros, go ahead and click the blue Talk to Us button on any page of the studio to connect with a Ceros expert. We're here to help. Hey, thanks for joining us for today's episode. I'm Drew Horine, and I'll see you on the next Ceros Academy.